What's up, metalheads? Welcome to the Scrap Metal Podcast, the show for the Misfits who've been listening to the same music since high school. I'm your host, John von Frankenstein, and joining me today is my metal thrashing mad co-host, Chris. Chris, I gotta ask you, man, how you feeling?
I gotta say, I am feeling dateable.
Dateable? Oh my god. So, wait, wasn't there a show Undateable on MTV back in the day? Was that Chris Hardwick or was that Matt Pinfield? Who hosted that?
I don't know. But that sounds familiar that there was.
It sounds
Undateable.
like there was like Jenny McCarthy and Matt Pinfield.
I don't know, dude.
I'm being Mandela affected. Chris, does this feeling of being dateable have anything to do with how you're keeping your heavy metal street cred?
It probably doesn't. But I have been playing this game that came out recently called Date Everything. And this is a dating simulator where the premise is that you are working from home and a hacker reaches out and sends you a package that contains these special sunglasses. Not unlike the sunglasses in They Live, but instead of Roddy Piper seeing aliens, you are able to see dateable personifications of the items around your house. So you can date the walls, the floors, the ceiling. You can date bookshelves. You can date the desk. You can date chairs and tables and your microwave.
J.D. Vance's dream.
Yeah, exactly. That is the joke that was made like 500,000 times when the streamers I was watching were playing it. But yeah, you can date every item in your house, and there are 100 different items you can date. And so I was playing this game. It was a lot of fun, fully voice acted. So there's all these voice actors that I love in it. There was some influencers that I follow on Instagram that were posting that they were voices in it. And so I'm playing the game, and the first dateable that I pursued was my computer named Mac. And I'm talking to the computer, and the computer keeps telling me like, oh, I haven't had an OS upgrade in a while. I think, if you want me to be the best version of myself for you, you should update my OS. So I'm like, all right. So I do, updating the operating system and everything. And once they're updated, all of a sudden they're like, yeah, I really like you, but I think maybe we should try having more of an open relationship and all this and that. And I'm like, wait, no, I did this because I wanted to hang out with you, not to see other people. But I'm like, all right, whatever. So then I start flirting with the bookshelves in the same room as the computer.
Okay.
And then I went upstairs and had sex with my bed. So that's how it's been going for me in Date Everything.
That is incredible. Has Hatebreed done the soundtrack for this? Date everything! Date everything! Go and fuck a bookshelf now! Oh my god, that's just, what the hell was the movie with Joaquin Phoenix that everyone is now comparing to what's going on with ChatGPT? Her?
Yeah, her. I think Scarlett Johansson was the voice, right? Yeah, Scarlett Johansson was the voice of the AI, yeah.
Dude, the fact that that game sounds hysterical.
It is,
but
it's awesome.
The fact that we are in a point in time in history where people are actually falling in love with chat bots. Yeah. It's like... I guess it's just a new form of it because I'm sure that there have been people who fall in love with AI phone sex operators and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
In the past, before it was actually a chat bot. I don't know what the fuck I'm trying to say.
Dudes have been falling in love with women who are paid to talk to them since women were paid to talk to men. This is, right. The first time a caveman gave a pretty cave woman his favorite rock, and she pretended to enjoy hearing about how he went hunting for the last of the woolly mammoths. Since then, men have been falling in love. Yeah, exactly.
She's like, oonga boonga,
yeah, exactly. Absolutely. This is not new. It's just now men don't have to pay the AI to like them. They can just burn down half the Amazon rainforest for the AI to do its thing.
And honestly, isn't that what life is all about? There's got to be something about the experience of a live woman that maybe would change these people's minds. And similarly,
you are really grasping at straws right now, and I fucking love it.
That's what I do, baby. And sometimes seeing a band live is what will turn you on to them or turn your opinion of that band around completely. So Chris came to us with the idea of doing a best live albums episode, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about some of the best live albums we were able to dig up, some of our favorites, and why these live albums are so important. But before we get into that, and if you're excited, Chris, this was an idea that we were like, wait a minute, have we done this before? Are we accidentally re-recycling ourselves?
Yeah.
But explain the difference between this best live albums episode and our prior Scrap Metal Comes Alive episode that we did a few months, years back.
I'm pretty sure that was episode like 17 or something. And what are we at? Like 90?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was like 2 weeks ago.
Right.
But yes, as John mentioned, we had previously in the pre-YouTube days, we had an episode, Scrap Metal Comes Alive, very obviously influenced by the seminal live album, Frampton Comes Alive. But since we named it after one of the most famous live albums, I kept thinking that episode was a lot about live albums, especially since I remembered suggesting a live album that I had attended the recording of as my suggestion. Right. But no, that episode was just about our favorite live shows and all the things we love about live music. And so once I realized that we weren't double dipping, I was like, yes, let's do an episode all about our favorite live albums.
I love this because I'm sure that we're going to touch on a lot of the same topics and a lot of the same reasons that make these live albums and the live recordings so cool to listen back to and to be able to have them there on record for us to be able to go back and dive into. But the discussion is decidedly different. Where,
yes.
I've said time and time again, seeing music live is sometimes the best way to discover a band.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we've got so many resources, whether you want to go back in the day and talk about tape trading, people just like making a mixtape for you in the CD days.
Yeah.
Keeping your Walkman in the back pocket of your Jenkos. Or now where it's like, you're finding stuff through YouTube reactions or TikToks. And there are so many avenues with which you can discover music, but I think that the live show is still the most important, it carries the most weight.
Yeah.
Because you get to see a band commanding an audience.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get to see an audience kind of like a band struggling to connect with an audience. And then just one song or one interaction, one pit call will change the whole entire trajectory of the show. And I love getting to see that because the live show is an art form.
Yeah.
And to be able to listen back to those moments that make the live show so cool is what makes an episode like this so much fun to dive into. What was the first live album that came to mind when you thought this idea up?
Well, once again, Frampton Comes Alive always comes to mind, but I think second after that is Kiss Alive.
Right.
What I find so interesting is that it is the Kiss Alive version of Rock and Roll All Night that I hear on the radio.
Yeah.
You never hear the album version. You only ever hear the Kiss Alive version. And so for me, that was one of the first I thought of, but it also made me think of the way I was introduced to Kiss was my dad brought home an album called You Wanted the Best, You Got the Best. This was released in 1996 and was really just a collection of live performances. So it wasn't like Alive or any of the other Alives that they released where it was like full concerts or like side 1 is one concert and side 2 was a different concert. This was just
Right.
a collection of the best performances from Alive, Alive 2, and put all on one CD. And so it was live versions of Rock and Roll All Night, Shout It Out Loud, Beth, Calling Dr. Love. These were the songs that were on the albums, and these were the songs that introduced me to Kiss. And so I think being introduced to a band like Kiss, you know, I'm only hearing live versions of the songs because the best part about Kiss is the live show. You know, like the music is great, but like you don't get to experience Ace Frehley's guitar spitting sparklers. You don't get to experience Paul Stanley smashing his guitar. You don't get to experience Gene Simmons spitting up blood and flying across the stage. You know, you don't get to see Peter Criss's drum set, you know, get lifted off the stage. You know, so hearing the music live, even if you can't see it, if you've seen them live or if you've seen a video of them live, you can imagine in your head what the live show looks like. When you're hearing the live version of Rock and Roll All Night, you can see that Kiss logo lighting up behind them, and you can imagine the fireworks going off behind them. So Kiss was immediately the band that I thought of when we were going to do live albums, because they have so many live albums to choose from, but the one that introduced me to Kiss was You Wanted the Best, You Got the Best.
That's an awesome choice. I love Kiss so much. I really do. Kiss informed so much of what I like about music.
Yeah.
I love over-the-top performances. I love these larger-than-life personalities in music. And I love theatricality, being able to connect with an audience, having a production that feels more than just like a rock show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, while I still love the intimacy of, like, going to a smaller local show, Kiss is what you think of when you think of rock and roll.
Yeah.
When you think of the over-the-top rock star, it's Kiss.
Yes.
And it's funny, I wasn't going to bring this live album up, but right here, right now, from Ghost, not only did we have a live movie, like a live concert and film to go along with it, but Ghost has taken the influence of Kiss and really run with it. So much so that when I saw them perform at Madison Square Garden on their latest tour, they open up the show with You Wanted the Best, You Got the Best, the hottest band in the world, Ghost. And they end off the show with a giant Ghost logo that comes down with the lights like Kiss.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's so sick to see just how important Kiss and their influence has been on music. And like you said, there is something to it where, like, back in the day, you didn't have the opportunity, unless you got your hands on a bootleg that someone taped of a show, you did not have the opportunity to be like, oh, they performed at Madison Square Garden last night. Let me see if anyone got some really good quality videos of it.
Yeah.
I can go back and watch Ghost at the Barclays from back in 2017 or 2018 when I first saw them. This is like right after my brother first got me into them. And I can still go back and watch that show. Yeah. And there's a couple of pretty good quality videos of the concert. But with them making this latest tour phone free, it harkens back to the days when it was like, you hear from a friend like, they did this at the show, or during this song, Papa comes out in this outfit, he was floating above the stage, he comes out of the stage with a cowbell, all these different things where, like, now when you get to listen back to the live performance, if you hear that song, you're like, oh, like you said, you start to imagine what you've heard about, and it creates this larger than life mythos around the band. But again, all credit due to Kiss, because they really are, they really were the first ones to do something like that, where they took it from just being a simple punk style show, for four guys from Queens, to something larger than life. And now for something completely different. The first album I actually wanted to talk about is from the band Earth Crisis. So, vegan, straight edge, hardcore band from upstate New York. And I've been getting into a lot of hardcore lately, thanks in part to our New York hardcore episode that we did. So definitely go back and check that episode out. We do not mention nearly enough New York hardcore bands.
Yeah.
But we scratch the surface, and like it kind of shows how we, just like you guys, we are still learning about new music. So the Earth Crisis album that I wanted to talk about is The Oath That Keeps Me Free. And I was like searching like for something that kind of showed what it's like to go to a hardcore show. And a lot of hardcore bands now don't really have a ton of live albums.
Yeah.
You've got tons and tons of live videos, but you don't really, not many of them have put out live albums, where the older, like the OGs, really have. And this album from Earth Crisis is one of them. And it was like some sort of benefit show. I forget exactly what I read on Wikipedia, but it looked to be some sort of benefit show. And it starts out, they're thanking the person who is hosting the show. And they were like, this song goes out to him. And it starts out with a hardcore cover, a beat 'em up hardcore cover of Sunshine of Your Love by Cream. And it's like, it is so funny to hear a hardcore band covering a like psychedelic 1960s blues rock band, who like in part, like along with Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, is kind of credited for like creating the power trio and like the sort of heavy metal sound that we think of like with stoner and doom and stuff like that. But it was such a trip to hear that's where the concert starts. Yeah. And as I'm doing this exploration of hardcore, I kind of get to say like, okay, cool, this song is really cool. Gomorrah, I forget what the full title is, but it's Gomorrah something or other. That's a really awesome song. Firestorm, which is like their I Will Be Heard, that ends off the set, and that is such a cool song. And I've heard it said that like before Earth Crisis came out with their Firestorm EP, like production wise, that really stood out because it was such pristine and clean production. So to hear them performing it live, and you feel the energy, and they're super tight. And I love being able to hear stuff like that and kind of see what makes a live show so powerful. You can really hear the energy from the audience. And that's one of my favorite things about live albums. Do you find that like a live album will get kicked up an additional notch if you can hear the audience? Or is that like, do you want like the piped in cheering kept to a minimum?
I feel like what's weird about that is I think it's similar to my feelings that we did talk about in that previous episode about live shows, is that it almost depends on what I'm looking for when I'm listening to a live album. If I'm listening to Kiss live, I want to hear the cheers when, the band goes into it, and I want to hear the cheers, when, at the beginning and the end, and I want to hear all of that. But, another album I want to talk about is the Misfits' Evilive.
Oh, okay, cool. That was on my list too.
Which, I think it was originally released in 81 or 82, but the version I've always heard was released in 1987 because that's the version that was included in the Misfits box set. And what I love about that is that they're a punk band playing in these, I think it was recorded at the Ritz in New York City. So it's it has a more intimate feeling where like, I want to say it's either Jerry Only or Glenn Danzig. Like it sounds like they're trying to pick a fight with the crowd. Like it's like, I feel like someone threatened someone in the crowd. And then I'm pretty sure it's Jerry who is like, oh, we got to tune up our guitars because we beat the shit out of our guitars because we're a bunch of fucking jackasses. And like all the shit that they're talking about. And I don't know if it's Jerry or Glenn in between songs is like, oh, you want it turned up? Yeah, you want it turned up or what? Let's turn it up. And like just like that banter with the crowd. And I guess it's such we've talked about how Kiss, because so much goes into a Kiss production, it's not so much a concert as it is a live performance that is very carefully choreographed, because otherwise you're going to have a James Hetfield standing over the pyro situation again.
Right.
Where, you know, one of these guys might get set on fire or have something, you know, blow up in their face. So it needs to be very choreographed. Whereas with the Misfits in 1981, they're just playing their show and doing whatever they want and playing whatever songs they want. And I think that has like more, I don't want to say more energy, but a different energy, you know?
Yes.
And it kind of helps almost show to me that as much as I love the spooky Halloween, you know, horror punk thing that the Misfits were doing, they were still a punk rock band. They were still a bunch of dudes from New Jersey with a bad attitude. And like, we're going to pick fights with people and we're going to get arrested because they were hanging out in a graveyard after it was closed. So like, it's almost like you get to hear like, yes, these guys were punks. They weren't doing the mohawks and everything, but they were doing a very different look. But it was still, they're still a punk rock band. They're just singing about Vampira instead of how shitty the government is. Like it's, but you're still getting the punk attitude and the punk feeling from them. So I think that's why I wanted to make sure I brought up Evilive. Also, you know, most of the songs on Evilive, I can hear them on other spots in the box set. But one of my favorite songs off of Evilive is All Hell Breaks Loose. And that's the only version of that song in the box set. So like I've never heard another version of that song. That's the only version of that song that I like and that I've ever heard. But yeah, it's for all of those reasons and for all of the energy and all of the funny interjections in between songs from Jerry and Glenn. That's why I wanted to make sure I brought up the Misfits Evilive.
It's such a good pick. I had that on my list too, and I had a feeling that you were going to bring it up as well. Like I was like, "There's no way that Chris is going to miss an opportunity to bring up the Misfits and talk about this live album." But I agree with you. There's like between them sounding like they're picking fights with people, and also just the spots where Glenn's voice is missing, because you know he's either like pointing the microphone out to the crowd, you know what I mean? Like people are doing a mic grab, or he's just so engrossed in the performance. Yeah,
because he comes in early on Night of the Living Dead. And then, it's, what's it, Horror Business? Or it's, whichever one with the chorus is Psycho 78. Because Jerry is singing Psycho 78, and that's when Glenn is picking a fight with someone. He's like, touch me one more time, motherfucker, or something like that, while Jerry only is trying to sing the backing vocals of the chorus.
Yeah, dude, I love it. It's just, it's so chaotic and raw. And yes, for those of us who did not have an opportunity to see the Misfits back in the day, back in their heyday, you know, back in the only era of the Misfits that really mattered. Let's be honest here. It lets you like it's a time capsule. It's a time capsule for that
Absolutely.
time. And you get to see, as much as people want to rag on them, that it's all about the merchandising and it's, you know, the disputes over the name and the merch and all this stuff and blah, 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 blah. It's like, before they were that business, which after a certain point, when you get big enough, you kind of have to be business smart in that way. It's like it sucks, but it's just the reality of these people also needing to make money off of their art, right? Like that they want to make money off of their art. They were punks from New Jersey, and they had just had that attitude and picking fights with people. I always crack up on it's not a live album, but they include like a live bit during sound check or something on Throwdown's Haymaker. I think it's before Nothing Left. They're sound checking. It's like, okay, can I get some more kick and snare in the monitor? Blah blah blah. Can you turn this up? And someone goes, "Shut up!" The singer just goes, "Fuck you, Johnson," and then they kick into the song. I love stuff like that. And another live album from a super important New York venue that features the band kind of maybe getting into it with the audience is Live at CBGB from Agnostic Front. Again, this is another one where I am kind of using like that live album to be like, awesome, this song really goes off, that song really goes off, to go back and do a deeper dive into Agnostic Front. Yeah. Because they are such an important band in NYHC. And I have not done a whole deep dive. Like I've only scratched the surface with them again in our NYHC episode.
Yep.
But this live album is awesome. Again, showcasing the energy that the band has, showcasing why they are considered one of the greatest hardcore bands of all time. You know what I mean? And like there's I think it's like 2 or 3 songs into the album where the singer's like, "You gonna watch the band or you gonna watch Security all night?" And then they just kick into the song. I'm like, there you fucking go. There you go. That's the energy of a fucking live show. It's like, the show's fucking up here. Keep your eyes up here.
Yeah.
But at the beginning of, is it United and Strong or is it Liberty and I think it's Liberty and something or other. They start off the song with the fucking Pledge of Allegiance. They're like, all right, well, we're an American band, so we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. So everybody do the fucking Pledge of Allegiance with us. And the whole entire audience goes into the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh my God.
And then they kick into the fucking song. It's great. It's awesome.
Oh my God. That's awesome.
But like the cover of the album itself is an American flag with like Doc Martens all laced up and everything. And it's like, okay, that's very, very telling of, of like the attitude of the band and stuff. And it's just, it's so awesome. And again, the reason this live album sticks out to me is again because of the energy. You can feel them connecting with the audience. Yeah, you get like the little call outs and stuff like that where it's like, fucking pay attention to us.
Yeah.
But it's more than that. It's the art of how you're connecting with your audience, especially back then. Nowadays you will see. I guess it must be like after the whole Astro World fiasco, that fucking tragedy of people fucking dying because the promoters oversold and overpacked the fucking audience.
Yep.
Where like singers will be applauded for like stopping a show and being like, "Are you okay? Like someone get them water," and blah 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 blah. And it's like, okay, yeah, as a singer, it's your responsibility to make sure that shit is okay.
Yeah.
But then you've also got moments like Fred Durst fucking being like, you know what? They told us to calm the fuck down, so you know what? Break the rest of this shit down.
Yep.
Light some shit on fire.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's like this. It's still the singer and the band's responsibility to get a reaction out of the audience.
Yeah.
So it's cool to have those moments documented. Chris, what's another live album that you can think of that you think is super important? And is it another one of those that like really clues you into how the band connects with their audience?
So the next album I want to talk about, there's definitely a connection between the artist and the audience. And it is another New Jersey artist performing in a historic New York venue, but it is not nearly as chaotic as any of the albums we were just talking about. Okay. I'm, of course, talking about Springsteen on Broadway.
Okay.
I love Bruce Springsteen. My dad loves Bruce Springsteen. He introduced me to Springsteen. Yeah, I've probably seen Springsteen live more than anyone else because me and my dad would go every time he came around.
Chris means more than anyone else has ever seen Springsteen live on the planet.
But yeah, it's I love it. But Springsteen on Broadway, me and my dad did get to go see one of these shows, and it was so cool. We were like in the 7th row, so like And it wasn't that big of a theater. And one of the things that I thought was really cool is that with any artist or any performer, I am most likely only ever going to hear them through some sort of microphone or recording or something. Because this theater was so small, there were times where Bruce was talking not into a microphone. And I could just hear the man speaking as if I was like having a conversation with them, which I thought was like a really cool experience to be seeing this, you know, one man show in this small theater. You know, my dad's met Bruce Springsteen a ton of times. So he was stalking him while he was recording The River. So like it's my dad has all these pictures and things signed because he kept going back into New York City while he was recording The River. But Springsteen on Broadway, you know, it wasn't necessarily a concert. It was like a mix of like a concert and like a biography and like a biographical performance. You know, there were things that he was talking about that my dad was like, yeah, he mentioned these things in his book. So like the opening track is a song that I love called Growing Up. It's off of his first album, and he does a brief intro. He starts playing the song, and then there's like a 7-minute interlude in between the second and third verse where he's telling stories about being a kid and the first time he tried to play guitar and how he rented a guitar from a music store and took lessons for 3 days and decided it was too hard, and his mom was going to have to return the guitar because he wasn't playing it. But then he talks about how like the day before they returned it, he, you know, put on a concert in his backyard where he just posed with the guitar in his backyard on his deck. And that was his first performance. So like it was a lot of that, him telling stories about his life and kind of going through, you know, his whole career. And he made a lot of jokes about himself about, this was doing the Broadway show was the first time he ever had to work 6 days a week. And it sucks. He has all these songs about being a working man and working in factories, and songs about racing cars in the city and all this stuff. It's like he's writing songs about driving when he doesn't have a driver's license. He's writing songs about being this hardworking man in a factory when he's 17 years old. Like he's a bullshit artist, but it worked. He was really fucking good at it. And so that's why this was one of the few albums that immediately came to mind as well, because it was it felt unique to me in that it was a live performance and a live album, because it's a recording of one of the live performances of Springsteen on Broadway. But I think it's probably closer to like original Broadway cast recording versions of like musicals, but it's probably closer to that than like a live album. But technically this is a live performance that was recorded and you can listen to. So I wanted to include it because, like I said, he played Growing Up, Dancing in the Dark, Born in the USA. There's a part in 10th Avenue Freeze Out where he's mentioning characters named Scooter and the Big Man, which are supposed to be Bruce Springsteen and Clarence Clemons. And at the time that, I think at the time, by the time he was even doing the show, Clarence had passed away. And so before he goes into the line in the song about Scooter and the Big Man joining the band, he tells a story about Clarence and meeting Clarence and how much he loved Clarence, and then goes into this line. And of course, the Big Man joined the band always gets a huge reaction, especially now that Clarence has passed away. But that's why I wanted to make sure I brought this album up. I know lots of people have lots of opinions about Bruce Springsteen. It seems like I'm one of the few people I know, other than my dad, who actually likes his music. But I think this live show was great, and so it was definitely something I wanted to make sure I brought up.
I have learned to have a lot more respect for Springsteen. My brother loves him. My brother loves Springsteen. Like I can just imagine. You know how they say if you were to butter toast and then like stick it onto the back of a cat, it would just rotate.
Yes.
Like into infinity. That would be you two talking about Springsteen. You guys would just fucking gravitate towards each other. Just be like, oh.
Yes.
And then just spin midair, create a fucking black hole. But the way that my brother talks about Springsteen and the way that you talk about Springsteen with so much reverence is very similar, the two of you. And listening to Jay Weinberg talk about his time covering for drums when either Max was like sick or something. There was like some point where he was like 17 or 18 that he had to do a few shows with Bruce. And he talks about how like Bruce will call out the tempo, but there's a click track and there's two buttons next to the hi-hat pedal, and one will start the click. And if that click is anywhere off, faster or slower than the tempo that Bruce has counted the song off in, there's another button just next to that one where he'll be able to tap in the new tempo. So now everyone is hearing the click to the tempo that Bruce called out.
Yeah.
And like that's insane.
Yeah.
To have that level still of where it feels like just a full free-flowing performance.
Yes.
And like, we're going to do this song now. Go ahead, start it off.
Oh,
we're going to do that song now, and this is the tempo we're doing it at. But there's still some control that's there because they're still a professional band of that caliber. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, because
tons of respect.
I forget what it was. I feel like it was some sort of like memorial concert or something for something. They were benefiting something. And I remember I remember U2 performed. And they tried to play a song they hadn't rehearsed and had to start over like 3 or 4 times.
Oh, fuck.
Where like Bruce Springsteen, I saw him on a tour once where he was encouraging the people on the floor to hold up signs of songs they wanted him to perform.
Oh,
and
shit.
He would walk out into the crowd, grab the signs, and they would perform the songs. Now, he had a monitor that had the lyrics, but the rest of the band just knew the song. So he would just pick a song and they would play the song. And I remember at this benefit concert, right after U2 couldn't get their shit together, Springsteen comes out and him and the E Street Band just play whatever song comes to mind. Billy Joel and his band do the same thing. I was at the last play at Shea where Paul McCartney showed up. And they weren't sure if Paul McCartney was going to show up. And Billy Joel does Piano Man. And then they're all backstage. And Billy is like, you have to do another song. Like he already did, Saw Her Standing There. And Billy Joel was like, Paul, you got to do one more song. And Paul was like, how about Let It Be? And Billy Joel was like, yep, we're doing Let It Be. And the whole band has to go out and now perform Let It Be with one of the fucking Beatles at the piano playing it.
Yeah.
And like, they didn't rehearse this. It was Paul McCartney who told them we're playing Let It Be now. And so that's something that I've always had respect for. And I'm glad you are, learning about that and what's the fucking word I'm looking for? Like you appreciate
giving credit where
that.
Credit's due.
Yeah, you're giving the credit and you're appreciating that. Yes, the music isn't always what everyone wants to listen to. Sometimes the music isn't even what I want to listen to, but there's a lot of talent in this band that they're able to play pretty much any song Bruce calls out. And so that's something that's also very cool about the band is that he's able to just say, all right, we're playing this song now and you better know it. That's why he's able to put on like a 6-hour long concert because he can just be like, oh, actually, we're going to do this song now. And then they just play it.
Another instance where a band's lead singer is able to just change up what's happening and everyone just accepts it and goes with it is Randy Bly changing the lyrics to the intro of Omerta on their Killadelphia live album. Now, I will admit, this is a live album that you can purchase and listen to, but I always knew this live album as the Killadelphia DVD. Concert DVDs, like when I was in high school, that I had stacks upon stacks upon stacks of concert DVDs. I love watching live performances because it's just so cool to me when you get to have that closer look at the way that the band is interacting with one another on stage, as well as interacting with the audience. And not only was this like the classic Lamb of God lineup, and what I mean by that is this is back when Chris Adler was still playing drums for them. He's no longer in the band. Art Cruz is now the drummer for Lamb of God, and Art does an incredible job. If you are unfamiliar with Art Cruz, watch some of his videos with the Drumeo YouTube channel. He is he's insane. He is filling very, very big shoes in Lamb of God and has done so far in spades. But this classic lineup is so important to music and this style of music that I'm glad that we have that documented the way that we do. But what always made it stand out to me is that I don't know if this was the first instance, but I know when they play the song Omerta live, as opposed to the recorded version, the line is, "Any man who appeals to the law against his fellow man is a fool or a coward, and any man who cannot take care of himself without that law is both. For a wounded man shall say to his assailant, if I live, you are forgiven. No, if I die, you are forgiven. If I live, I will kill you. Thus is the rule of honor."
Yeah.
Or I fucked it up, but it's along those lines.
It's along those lines. You remember more than I do. All I remember is I will kill you. So,
but that's exactly what I'm talking about. Is the line where Randy on the recording on the album says, "If I live, I will kill you. If I die, you are forgiven. Such is the rule of honor." Live, he flips it so that right before "such is the rule of honor," it's "I will kill you." And the fucking pop that it gets from the audience every fucking time. When my friends and I and my wife, we went to go see them for her birthday last year or around our anniversary maybe. Saw them at Mohican Sun. And they played the entirety of the Ashes of the Wake album.
Oh, that's cool.
In full.
That's awesome.
And just, you could feel it. You could feel it sizzling in the audience that everyone was just waiting for this opening.
Yeah.
And the way that everyone just yells, "I will kill you" at the top of their lungs is a lot like the moment in Creeping Death where everyone's just yelling, "Die!
Yes.
Die!" You know what I mean? It's like, it's so powerful. And I also loved, again, because I know this as a live DVD first, I love all of the behind the scenes looks at each member that you get throughout this DVD, as well as the interpersonal relationships. And I think it's on this DVD where they document the fight between Mark Morton and Randy Bly, where they got into a legit fist fight.
Oh, wow.
And it was like, back then, to a young kid, it's like, oh, wow. So these bands are not always getting along.
Yeah.
They are going to have moments where they're going to beat the shit out of each other, and then they've got to go and play a show the next night.
Yep.
They got to fucking make up and just fucking be adults. And it's really cool to get that glimpse. Yeah. As well as having the opportunity to hear these songs played live and hear them being played so close to the recording.
Yeah.
That's another thing, is like, I don't know that I will not necessarily give points to a live album if it sounds exactly like the recording, because I think those are two completely separate things. If I want to hear the album and I want to hear it like note for note, slide for slide, phrase for phrase, line for line, I'm going to put the album on. Yeah. If I'm putting on a live album, it's because I want to be able to put it on and just close my eyes and hear the roar of the crowd at the beginning of the album and hear them kick into the first riff of their opening song and just everybody light up. Yeah. That's what I love about these live albums. That's why I like to be able to go back and revisit them. And a lot of times, they're picking really important dates to be able to record. Yeah. And that's another thing. I don't know where you stand on that. If you're kind of like me in that, where I don't necessarily need it to sound exactly the way it does on the album. To me, it's more important that they have a presence about them when they're playing live. It's like when you go see Dream Theater. Dream Theater's gonna sound exactly the way they do on the album. Maybe James LaBrie won't. Not at this point. And credit where credit's due. He's been singing for like 35, 40 years, something like that. But they are going to play their songs the way that they are on the album, and you kind of expect that from Dream Theater. But if they change things up a little bit, I wouldn't mind that. Like, that's not so important to me. If I want to listen to the album, I'll throw the album on.
It's interesting because I feel like the style of music we both like, is a style of music that you kind of want there to be more energy or a slightly different sound when you hear a song live. And there are plenty of times, like I talked about at the beginning of the show, it's the live version of Rock and Roll All Night that I hear on the radio and want to hear. And, you know, it's interesting. I love Anthrax and I love so much of their early music, but some of the recordings of those songs that's on The Greater of Two Evils, which is not a real live album. They call it like an almost live album because it was performed live in a studio in front of an audience, but it's not recorded like a live show. The audience wasn't mic'd up or anything, but it is John Bush era Anthrax singing the early, you know, Joey Belladonna, and I'm blanking on the original lead singer's name. Neil Turbin, you know, those songs. So it's in 1983, the guitar didn't quite sound as good. And, you know, some of the stuff may not have sounded as great on the original recording. But when you've got in 2005, Scott Ian, and I'm not sure if Dan Spitz was still in the band at this point. No, Rob Caggiano was on that. That album. But like their guitars are much more distorted. And there's a lot. It sounds more like you expect thrash metal to sound like. And so I think that's something that you get to see bands do, is that when you hear a live album, it might be a little bit more distorted because they're able to turn it up a bit and kind of add to the sound, you know, kind of get the sound they were going for. You know, it wasn't one of my original choices to bring up, as something that I thought of was Black Sabbath's The End, which was their last show until recently. But like Tony Iommi is getting to play with the guitar tone he always wanted to have when he played these songs. In 1970, he couldn't get as distorted and crunchy as he wanted. Now it sounds the way he wants it to sound, which is something I've talked about why I love modern covers of some of these classic songs, because it's almost like you get to hear someone performing the song closer to how I think all of us would really like the song to sound. And I think that's something that I like about a live album sounding different from the recorded album, is because the live album is almost a better presentation of who the band is. I remember a interview with Slash, Eddie Trunk interviewing Slash, and Eddie Trunk was saying that if he was gonna listen to a new band, he'd want to look to see if they have a live album, because he felt like that was the best representation of who the band was. And Slash told a funny story about how he did the same, but it was more of him as a teenager shoplifting the live albums, because and that's the story he's telling. He's like, yes, when I was stealing the albums, I always stole the live album. So I thought that was a funny story. But yeah, I think there's, you know, that kind of goes to show that there's a lot of that in, I think, the punk and metal world, where we're like, no, we kind of want to hear what the band sounds like live, because that kind of informs the opinion of, you know, what the band is and what they sound like.
Right. Yeah. I think it's more important for a band to be able to capture their live energy on an album than it is for them to try and capture the album in a live performance. Yeah,
definitely.
If that makes sense.
So a live album that came to mind because of, I think, the band's antics with the crowd. And I think in a way this also kind of shows more of who the band is
Uh-huh.
SOD and their album Rise of the Infidels. So
Okay.
this was released in 2007, had 4 tracks recorded as new songs, but then the rest of the album is a live show that was recorded in Seattle. And I'm not sure when it was recorded. Based on my shitty math, I think it was a reunion show in 1999 because at some point, well, I'll get to that part of the story. So it's performed in Seattle, and SOD on Speak English or Die has the Ballad of Jimi Hendrix, which is the first few notes of Purple Haze, and then they all yell, "You're dead."
Yeah.
So the band comes out, and the first thing they do is the Ballad of Nirvana, which is the opening of Smells Like Teen Spirit, and then they yell, "You're dead." So Billy Milano comes out. He's like, "Yeah, we're SOD." They play it. "You're dead. Thank you, Seattle. Good night." And acts like that's the end of the show. And then they go into March of the SOD or whatever. But then later on in the show, they do a bunch of ballads right in a row where they do the Ballad of Jimi Hendrix, the Ballad of Jim Morrison, the Ballad of In Excess, the Ballad of Frank Sinatra. And then they do Nirvana again. Scott starts playing Smells Like Teen Spirit again. And you hear Billy Milano go "Oh, fuck, he's playing it again. Here we go. You're dead." And then Scott Ian starts arguing with someone in the crowd because I guess someone kept spitting at him. And because I think because I didn't realize that Jimi Hendrix was born in Seattle. And then they keep picking on Nirvana. And so throughout the show, people are giving them a hard time, but it's also kind of you're going to see SOD, their album is called Speak English or Die. But so that's what's funny is that during the second performance,
they're there to push buttons.
Yeah. During the second performance of the Ballad of Nirvana, Scott Ian is in 1985, we had no idea that 14 years from now, our careers would lead up to the moment we got to play this song here in Seattle. And I'm so that's why I think it's 1999, because he's saying 14 years from 1985. But one of the first things I was introduced to in SOD were all of these fucking ballads because they're so funny and they're so offensive. And I know I don't remember where I saw it. I think I've seen it in multiple places. Scott Ian has said that at his funeral, he wants an SOD style of a ballad played about him using, I want to say, the opening riff to March of the SOD. Because I think that's the one where it's dun 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 dun, "You're dead." That's what he wants played at his funeral, which I think is hilarious that he's still no, that's the best thing I've done is the ballad of all of these people who have died or killed themselves or died of overdoses or whatever, basically mocking their deaths. And then the riff I'm most proud of is the riff off of an album called Speak English or Die. So that's why I wanted to make sure I brought this up. Like I said, SOD Rise of the Infidels, because it's basically the entire album, Speak English or Die, plus all of these ballads. And it's just the way the band is interacting with the crowd and the songs that they're playing, it tells you exactly who SOD is and what they were going for, which is to be as offensive and obnoxious as possible.
I love that. We've talked about SOD and we've talked about Carnivore and how there's a difference between a band of ignorant people versus a band of goofballs who are purposefully trying to ruffle feathers, and they're not standing on business if somebody was to actually press them on something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a big difference, and there is a tongue-in-cheek nature to it all.
Yeah.
So when you look beyond the surface, it's hey man, like you said, you're here to see SOD.
Yeah.
What are you expecting? You think they were gonna let the opportunity to perform the Ballad of Jimi Hendrix go? And they're here in Seattle? Come on. Let's think a little bit more about it.
you know, that's like you're saying, it's tongue in cheek, and it's the exaggeration, which like brings me back to, I forget which episode it was where I brought up a research paper that I wrote about, you know, rock lyrics, where like it's the entire point of rock and roll has always been an exaggeration, is taking something that is important to you in terms of social issues, or just trying to shine a light on social issues, or just being like, hey, wouldn't it be fucking hilarious if we used the 2 hours we have in this studio to write a song like Pussy Whipped, or Speak English or Die, or a song like Milk, which is all about how I'm going to kill my mom because she forgot to buy a gallon of milk and I can't have milk with my cereal. You know, and that's the song. That's one of the first recordings of a blast beat, is the song Milk by S.O.D. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, that's the kind of band this is. It's important musical history, creating the genre of crossover thrash, and one of the first recordings of blast beats. And the songs are the stupidest songs you'll ever hear in your entire life.
I love that you bring up the point of exaggeration, especially when it comes to lyrics, because this band has famously been criticized for their lyrics, especially in the early days, talking about how these lyrics maybe celebrate violence towards women, how these lyrics celebrate serial killers and just violence and all of this. And the band themselves, or the lyricist himself, has even said now, like, would I write the same lyrics now? Probably not. I've got kids now. I have daughters. I might not write the same sort of stuff, but the lyrics are pretty fucking good, huh? And that's Cannibal Corpse and their live album, Live Cannibalism. The reason I picked this live album is because it's like, it's early on in Corpse Grinder's tenure with Cannibal Corpse. He had already been with them by this, but I think this was like 01 or 02.
Yeah.
So he'd already been with them for a while at this point. But they still, they played a lot of classics.
Yeah.
And they still retained a lot of the thrashiness that they had early on, which, Chris, I know you're a fan of the earlier Cannibal Corpse. So I think this one gives us kind of like best of both worlds, you know?
Yeah.
In our Corpse Grinder versus Barnes episode, Corpse Grinder versus Barnes, we talk about like the difference in each era and like, you know, who we liked best and whatnot. Yep. But you talking about ignorance in lyrics, Corpse Grinder to this day starts I Come Blood with, this song is about shooting blood out of your cock. It's fucking awesome.
It's like, because the classic video is that security guard, like the two black dudes standing there that are security. It's just, this is a song about shooting blood from my cock. And the security guard is like, the fuck? Did you just hear what this motherfucker just said? Are we hearing the same thing right now? And like, that's the reaction I love seeing out of anyone when they hear a metal band. That's the reaction I'd hope someone would give. That's the reaction you want someone to have. Because, like, as an audience member, like, that's why you're there. You want them to play I Come Blood so that Corpse Grinder does the bit. Where, like, to the uninitiated, it's horrifying to hear that.
Yeah. Go see a doctor. My friends wanted to play that at their wedding. And they were like, we have to fucking play it. And they wound up not playing it, but we did get to dance to I think it was either Hot Dog or Rollin', and Closer by 9 Inch Nails. So, you know, you win some, you lose some. So it was still a lot of fun. But yeah, I love this recording because it is just Cannibal Corpse firing on all cylinders. Corpse Grinder sounds fucking awesome. The set list is fucking great. And it sounds heavy. It sounds heavy. It sounds live. It sounds tight. And it's like getting to see these bands live just gives you an appreciation for how great these musicians are, like the musicianship and just how proficient they are on their instruments. It's just like it's part of what makes so many of us who are fans of this music want to pick up an instrument.
Yeah.
And try to learn the songs ourselves and try to write our own stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's just being like, yeah, I want to get that same feeling when Hammer Smash Face starts and it goes into the bass break.
Yeah.
Like I want to write something that's going to make people do like what's the meme of the three guys like in the classroom?
Yeah.
And then it's like they just hit the ding, and then they go into it, and they start
because
windmill headbanging and stuff.
Someone shows a video of like they're playing Hammer Smash Face, and then they pan up to the two long-haired metalheads, and one of them air basses that section, and then they start windmill headbanging as they're air drumming and air guitaring.
Yeah,
so it's awesome.
So for anyone who is tired of hearing us talk about how ignorant bands can be, Chris, do you have another live album that we can talk about with a little bit more class, pinkies up type stuff?
I mean, this band isn't as obnoxious as the other bands we've been talking about. I don't know how classy they are, but a band I love, and I've brought them up plenty of times, is They Might Be Giants. And I don't know if they really have any live albums. They definitely have live albums, but I feel like I've heard so many different live tracks from them as like bonus tracks or whatever. But what I actually want to talk about, what came to mind, is They Might Be Giants' venue songs. Because at some point while they were on tour, they started writing songs that they would perform about the venues or the cities that they were playing in. So they have a song about the borough of Brooklyn, because since they're from New York, they're always playing someplace in Brooklyn. So they don't have a specific Brooklyn venue song. They just have a song about Brooklyn. And it's like a minute long, but they're singing about Brooklyn to people from Brooklyn, so it's going to get a big reaction. But a song that I got to hear them perform live is their Farmingdale venue song, which was originally written about the downtown. And I'm not sure which John it is singing about eating nuts and crackers at the downtown. But when I saw them at the Crazy Donkey, they changed the downtown to the Donkey. And I thought that was really fun that they're playing this song. And I'm like, wait, are they singing a song about the Crazy Donkey? Because I'm not sure if by the time I saw them the first time, if I was familiar enough with their venue songs. But I thought that was really funny. And I thought that was something really funny that They Might Be Giants, because of course they would go on like, a 40 city tour and write 40 songs about these different cities, because of course they would do that.
They're the band.
They're the band that would do that. It's early in their career. They had Dial a Song, where they would give out a phone number and they would record a song to an answering machine. And so you would call them to hear their 40-second long song that they left on an answering machine.
Oh my
God. You could call them like every week and there'd be a new song. And so like this is the type of shit that they do, because I guess they're just brimming with creativity, where they're like, fuck, I gotta write 400 songs right now. And like and that's what they do. But I just thought it was so funny, and it was something that came to mind was, they have live albums that I haven't really listened to, but what is really fun with They Might Be Giants is they have written songs about the venues they perform live in, which I thought would make for something fun to talk about.
Yeah. Have I told you that my son is a fan of They Might Be Giants?
Oh,
now?
yeah?
Yeah. They do the music for the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse.
Oh, nice.
So the intro song is by them. The hot dog dance is by them. And we also bought him this little, it's like a story box, like a little speaker. You put a little figurine on it, and the figurine has a bunch of songs or stories loaded to it, right?
Yeah.
And he's got a Minnie Mouse one, and they sing a song about Minnie Mouse. Da, 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 Minnie Mouse. And I was like, I wonder if I can find this anywhere else. I have to send this to Chris. And it's just on. It's a Tony's exclusive They Might Be Giants song about Minnie Mouse. Some people say that she's just a mouse. What a mouse. The Taj Mahal is just a house. What a house.
I mean, that doesn't surprise me. They have multiple children's albums. They have Here Comes the ABCs, Here Comes the 1, 2, 3s, Here Comes Science, which like they perform songs off of those albums at their adult shows, because Here Comes Science. So they had done a cover of The Sun is a Mass of Incandescent Gas, which is factually incorrect. So they wrote a new version called The Sun is a Miasma of Incandescent Plasma. They have The Alphabet of Nations, which is a fantastic song. They have
that's the Animaniacs. No, that's not the Animaniacs.
No,
song.
Animaniacs is just
that was separate.
That's every country. Which the voice actor
was that
still
not written by them somehow though?
No, that wasn't written by them. Now
it just always gave me They Might Be Giants energy.
Yeah, it's definitely has They Might Be Giants energy.
For those of you just tuning in, this is the Scrap Metal Podcast. We talk about heavy metal and They Might Be Giants.
The voice actor of Yakko, Carlos Alizraki, is that how you pronounce his last name? He still has that memorized. He'll be at cons still doing that. But you might also be thinking about Particle Man and Istanbul.
Particle Man
were in Tiny Toon Adventures.
Yes.
They had Tiny Toon Adventures. And then there was, during commercial breaks on Nickelodeon, they had a little music video for Dr. Worm. And that would get played. And then, it's they have so many,
God,
like,
Dr. Worm.
They have so many.
That struck something in me.
Oh, Dr. Worm is fantastic. I love Dr. Worm. One of my favorite They Might Be Giant songs. But like, what's funny is that they have these child-friendly songs, but They Might Be Giants is, I know I'm going on a tangent right now, but They Might Be Giants is very specific about the ages at their shows, because Flansburgh will curse a lot at the adults only shows. So that's why they'll be like, oh, this show is 18 plus or 21 plus, because when they play Take Out the Trash, John Flansburgh can't stop talking about the motherfucking fuzz and wants the bass player to turn on that motherfucking fuzz because he loves the motherfucking fuzz. And he must have said it like 5 or 6 times when I saw them perform, where he's like, put the motherfucking bass on the motherfucking fuzz. And like, they had just released Here Comes the ABCs. So like, it's so funny how it's like, once again, the dichotomy of man, get you a man who can do both, talk about the motherfucking fuzz and teach you the alphabet by singing about countries in alphabetical order.
And to bring us back around to heavy metal, this is what the show has always been about. All right, it's our show. We talk about what we want to talk about. Yeah, we'll just throw Pantera in there as an honorable mention. Official Live 100 Proof. This was the album that taught me about how alcohol is proofed and the grading system they're in. And it's a favorite. It's a longtime favorite of mine. It's cool to hear Pantera during this time in their history, and having seen the new version of Pantera opening up for Metallica, it was kind of a letdown compared to listening to this album. Partially my own fault. The seats were up super, super high. Partially their fault. They should maybe not be doing what they're doing. But anyways, that's my honorable mention.
Yeah, when arguably the 2 most important members of the band are no longer with us, maybe just don't perform anymore. Don't call yourselves Pantera anymore. Yeah. If Phil and Rex want to go around and call themselves, the Phil and Rex show or whatever, yeah, go for it, but don't call it Pantera.
Phil and Rex. What could they call it?
The Phil and Rex, the Phil Anselmo white wine tasting, like. I hear it's
Phil Anselmo and the Chardonnay Experience.
Sounds like a powerful experience.
Oh, yikes. You know, there's something about the power of white wine. Chris, I think that if we ever start doing live shows, we're going to have to speak exclusively about They Might Be Giants. Do you have a suggestion for us this week?
I absolutely have a suggestion this week. I felt like we couldn't get through this episode without me talking about Slayer, because they are one of my all-time favorites. John knew me as the obnoxious Slayer fan all those years ago. I've settled down just a little bit, but just enough. I knew I wanted to bring up Slayer because Slayer has actually had multiple live albums. You know, most recently, the Repentless Trilogy they had back in 1991, Decade of Aggression, which was, 10 years in their career. They had this live album, but in 1984, they released an album called Live Undead. That was allegedly a live album. And there was a little bit of controversy and some arguments about whether or not this was actually a live album. Because it was recorded in New York City in 1984. And Fingers, who is, or at least was, I'm not sure if he's still on the air, was a DJ on my local classic rock radio station, WBAB, and he was like the metal guy. Like when I would go see Trans-Siberian Orchestra, Fingers was there. I think Fingers was also there when I saw Slayer and Megadeth with Anthrax at the Nassau Coliseum. So Fingers is like BAB's metal guy. And apparently in 1984, he hosted a contest where the grand prize was you get to see Slayer record a live show. Okay. But something didn't quite work out. And it ended up turning into Slayer doing kind of like what Anthrax did with Greater of Two Evils, an almost live album where they performed live in a studio with an audience that may have been as little as like 12 people. Okay. But on this album, there's crowd noise as if they're performing a live show. And there is debate.
They pulled a Benny and the Jets.
Yeah, there's debate as to whether the crowd noise that was added is the crowd that was as small as it was in the studio, or if they just added it later on. And like the way that everyone is like, ooh, I'll never tell. It's obviously they fucking added it later on. Like no one keeps a fucking secret for 30 years for, for it to be, it was actually a live show. Like, clearly something went wrong. They performed live. You can tell by listening to it, they're performing live. You can tell that it's not necessarily like they went into a studio, like they recorded it like a studio album. They recorded it like it was a live show. But there's some debate as to whether it's actually a live show or if they just pumped in some fake crowd noise. So, but I thought that'd be fun to bring up Slayer's 1984 album, Live Undead, which did make me think of the talk of like Fingers and the DJ and everything. There's a DJ, and I'm sure plenty of DJs do this, who I think was on BAB, who on Friday afternoons would be like, oh yeah, it's the happy hour or whatever. And there would be sounds in the background as if he was, broadcasting from a bar. He wasn't. He had just sound effects as if he was in a bar behind him, because I remember
the Q104 guy. They used to do from the. You're telling me he wasn't actually at a bar?
I don't think so, because I remember my dad even being like, I wonder where he's recording from, and then one day realizing like, no, he's just sitting in a fucking studio, and someone is pushing a button to make it sound like there's like a crowd in the bar, and that there's glasses clinking, and that someone is calling out to him. They're just pumping that in.
Oh my God.
It's the magic of radio.
Yeah. We've been lied to this whole entire fucking time. Also, please, for any of you watching on YouTube, leave down in the comments if you want Chris to clip him just going, I'll never tell. I need that on a fucking constant loop. I need that as its own reaction GIF, please. So
that's what I'm going to start sending. It's like, hey, Chris, did you remember to upload the thumbnail? I'll never tell. Hey, Chris, do you have a clip for the new episode that came out today? I'll never tell. Little sneak behind the scenes that I keep forgetting to upload thumbnails and clips.
Peek behind the curtain. Ignore the man back there. So my suggestion for this episode had to be none other than Suffocation. I got to see them recently opening up for Carnifex, which that show was fucking awesome. But that was my second time seeing Suffocation from the Barricade, and they're just so good live. They're so tight. They are so precise in the same way that I was talking about Cannibal Corpse just being on it and Lamb of God just being on it and tight. Suffocation live is a fucking well-oiled machine. It is so impressive. But this album, live in North America, features Frank Mullen on his last performance with the band. Frank Mullen sang for them from their inception up until 2018, 17, 16, something like that maybe. And he was the very first time I saw Suffocation opening up for Shadows Fall maybe, way back when. Frank Mullen was the singer. And it just, he had such a stage presence about him. His stage presence was so important that their new singer, I forget his name, I apologize, but the new singer does Frank's signature move. Anytime they go into the just fucking blast beats and like fucking machine gun guitar riffing, he would just stick his tongue out and be like, ah, and just like whip his hand around. And so their new singer does that too. Not as like I'm ripping him off, but I think just out of respect for Frank and what he did with Suffocation in his time with the band and how important he is to that style of death metal, right?
Yeah.
Of grind, of slam, where like seeing Terrence Hobbs at the fucking Barricade is so fucking cool.
Yeah.
Getting to see Frank Mullen from the Barricade when I saw them in 2003 or 2004 was so fucking cool. And this whole entire live album gives you that feel. It gives you that feel where you're just like, you are able to sense the electricity flowing through the audience because they know that this is something really, really special. So check out Suffocation's live in North America. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Scrap Metal Podcast. The time has come for us to pack up our gear, but we'll be back to rock out with you in the next episode.
Stay metal, everyone.
Good night.